Hello and welcome to Bergkamp Wonderland. We are still, unfortunately, an Arsenal podcast, and tonight is one in your favourite series of ABW meets, and this time it's ABW meets Guns and Yellow Ribbons with Fergus and Trev. Are you right, gentlemen?
Very well, thank you. Got roast pork in the oven, so hence I'm in the kitchen.
You think you're having a wonderful meal. My meal is this. That's 2 jacket potatoes that have been there for 4 days. Why is it in a bowl? People ask. Why is your food in a bowl? Have you ever tried wheeling along with one hand and holding a plate with another? Impossible. That's why I can't do it. Last time I did that, all my food went on the floor, so I bought a bowl. I bought a load of bowls from IKEA. Are you all right, Trev? What you got for dinner? Anything interesting?
And I wouldn't disrespect you by cooking my dinner while I'm talking on your podcast. I'm in where I always do my podcast. I've had my dinner, and you have my full attention, my friend.
What did you have for dinner? Anything interesting?
I had. Do you know what? Because the missus has been at work. We had stuffed crust pizzas, and it was very nice indeed.
Oh, dirty boy.
We usually have a roast, but not today.
Oh, good. I'm actually going to. Sean's mum's coming over about 6:30, and we're having fish and chips from Hodson's in Huntingdon. There you go. A very fine establishment if anyone goes there. So there we go. Right, there's a few people in the chat. Matt Roberts is there. Julio Salmondo is there, still on the run from the FBI. Loki is there, and you're there, and Luke Howard are there. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. Right, first of all, we're going to start with you, Fergus. Talk to us a little bit about how you became an Arsenal fan.
It was through marriage. When I met my good wife, I moved from Ireland in '88 to London, and I met my wife in '93. And all her family were she's not really an Arsenal fan or a football fan, but all her family were Arsenal fans. So I started following the scores and everything else to get in with my brother-in-law and make sure I was on the good books side of things. And it helped me in my job that I was doing at the time, just for small talk. And gradually, I just got more and more into it. I ended up moving from Hackney over to Islington. Well, the Islington-Hackney border. Started getting to go to a few games. And then it was shirts, then it was season tickets, then it was podcasts, then it was meeting retrobates like Trevor, and that's it from there.
So when you said you got into football, you weren't really into football. Was it a scene like from the Fast Show where they go, "Oh, that goal, oh, that was off some wrong team"? Was it any of that?
I couldn't possibly admit that, could I? To be honest, I didn't. I understood the game. I understood the rules. I used to watch Ireland international games. When Ireland beat England in '88 in the Euros with Ray Houghton's goal, I jumped around the front room. But I was more like your fair weather football fan. I followed and went to football in my hometown in Ireland, Athlone. My uncle was goalkeeper there, and the one and only time we ever got to Europe, he was in goal and saved a penalty against Standard Liège. So, a bit of a claim to fame there. So I did know football. I did enjoy going to football, and it was where we used to run on the pitch afterwards and tap all the players on the back, and you'd bang all the side. A bit more like non-league that Trev does sometimes when there's no football as well. But I stayed away from English football, one, because I wasn't in the country, and two, because at that time in the late 80s, 70s, it wasn't the most pleasant place to go to for a young, skinny little Irishman.
Although it was okay at Arsenal because that's when I was going. But being in Ireland, the national sport of Ireland is not football. It's rugby and hurling, isn't it?
Correct. And Gaelic football as well, yeah.
Yep. My mum often tells me about that. She's going to hit me with one of the hurling things right across the chop. Yeah. She's actually got a shillelagh that she used to have on the wall, and she threatened us with it. So, my mum's a very violent, old lady now. She's actually 78 in 2 days, if she makes it. Hopefully she does. I'll bring me around some cake. All right, Trev, I bet you've got a more traditional story of how you become an Arsenal fan.
Yeah, well, yeah, I most definitely have. I mean, I was born and raised in Tottenham, Danny, to a family of mainly Tottenham supporters, to be honest.
I always like it when I hear that.
I had one uncle, my Uncle Pat. He was a big Arsenal fan, and he took me over the Arsenal in 1970, and fell in love with the football team, and turned out I've never looked back since. That was my very first game, December 1970, and I've always been an Arsenal fan since. My dad loved, he was a football man, but he didn't go very often, so he didn't take me very often. My granddad was a Tottenham fan, but he didn't go very often. But my Uncle Pat went over the Arsenal all the time, and he took me. My first game I sat in the West Stand lower. It was against Wolverhampton Wanderers in December 1970, and we won 2-1 then.
What do you remember about that game? December 1970?
Do you know what? I don't remember anything about it really, apart from the shock of seeing the place, right? I was only 9 years old, yeah. But and to be honest, the only reason I know specifically was that was my first game is that the program and the tickets were saved.
The World War had just finished.
Anyone that's not seen Fergus before on this podcast, you'll have to realise that he sometimes talks over people, but he's not worth listening to because when he does, he talks absolute rubbish. So don't listen to him. Yeah, and the only reason I know it was my first game is because the program and the tickets were kept for me, Dan, and I've still got them, mate.
Is that what you put in our WhatsApp group?
I sent you that picture, yeah, because you asked me my first game, and there you were, yeah.
It was Wolves, wasn't it?
It was Wolves, yeah.
You want to know the lineup?
Off the top of my head, I couldn't remember it, but it was that great side. It was Radford scored that day, and Kelly played, and Armstrong played, and McClintock played, and Sims. All that great side from that double winning season. It was a brilliant time to become a young fan of the Arsenal because in my first season of going to the Arsenal was one of the most memorable ever. So. That's why it's so fresh in my mind. But some things have stuck, some things haven't. I mean, I'm 60 next year, so the memory ain't what it was, But it's that stadium.
We'll all be in tears. So your first game was 2 months and 2 days after I was born.
Wonderful. Was it really?
Yeah. October, same as Tony Adams, October the 10th, but mine's 1970. Right. We could talk about your first game and all that lot for ages. We're going to try and get this done in about 45 minutes. Otherwise, one of us is going to have a burnt pork. No one needs that, do they? So, Fergus, how did you start the podcast? And what? Actually, no, that's the second question. The first question is, when did you first start hearing about podcasts? And do you remember the first football podcast you listened to? I only ever ask that on occasion it's going to be ABW, and it never is. It's always Arsenal.
I did listen to ABW, but that was a little bit later on. The very first one I listened to was the one with Alan Smith, Yellow Boots. And
Alan Davis.
Alan Davis. Yeah, I'm crap at names. He was. That was the first one. I just thought it was absolutely brilliant, and I drive a lot for a living, so I'm in the car a lot. So rather than in between phone calls and bits and pieces, I put on a podcast. It would pause when the phone call come in, and then it would start back up again. So I wouldn't miss what was going on TalkSport or 5 Live or whatever. And I do remember when he came along and he had Ty on, and Ty and Alan Davis. I just had to double check. They were absolutely out of their nuts at Islington Green, and they come out of Pizza Express. I used to live around the corner from there many years ago, and he came out. Ty came along and saw this guy, this person, and said, "Oh, she was nice," and was some bloke with a beard. And they used the phrase "she was nice." So that was my first one, and then obviously I moved on to Arsblog and Gonna Blog. Yourself, I listened to your one. And I tried some of the others. I tried Same Old here and there. I tried various ones. But I was doing, because I run an Arsenal fans forum on Facebook, and then a friend of mine who's based in Boston was doing a blog called Wenger's Coat Zip. And he messaged when we were talking to each other, he was going to come over from Boston, and we went to see the Chelsea game. Long story short, he messaged and said, I'm thinking about doing something like maybe a blog or a podcast and stuff. I said, well, to be honest, I was thinking of doing something. I've done a few very drunken video clips outside the George and so on, and just to try and have some content. And I am so drunk in them, it's unreal. And we had a message back and forth in October 2017 about, what do you think about doing this? Yeah, I'll be interested in doing that. And we we came up with the name that had to be something to do with gunners and yellow and blue, and she wore a yellow ribbon, and it was all this sort of stuff. So we come up with guns and yellow ribbons, and now people go guns and roses, purple, this, and it's all sorts of different names. But we've done about 80 or 90 audio ones. And then I took the plunge, and Trev had joined us by that stage. I took the plunge to go video when this StreamYard platform came out. And we're on episode 207. We've done Gooner to Gooner chats. We've done various different things. And listen, Danny, it's never been a thing for us to make money. It's never been a thing to try and be famous. It's never been anything but a hobby, and sitting here and doing exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm talking to two good friends about the club I love, and just haven't. Yeah, you're not really, Trev. Two good friends that the club I love, and the thing I enjoy doing when I'm not in the pub, I enjoy being at the football, and this is how it's come from. And if it goes, brilliant. If it doesn't, I'll still carry on doing it because we just like doing it. And if you want to watch us. If you don't. We really don't care.
How about you, Trev? Do you remember the first podcast you listened to?
Yeah, Guns and Yellow Ribbons, mate. Because I'd never listened to podcasts, Danny. I didn't even know how to find one, to be honest. And it wasn't until I moved my season ticket from the upper tier to the lower tier, because I was right at the back of the North Bank upper tier, right? But when you've had a skinful of beer, it's a long climb up all them stairs. So after some time of doing it, I moved down to Block 7 on the lower tier, and I sat next to Johnny, who does work with us on Guns and Ribbons and was on it before me. And I got talking to Johnny, and Johnny said to me, "You know a bit about the Arsenal, didn't you? You were taking a mickey because I was old." He said, "Do you fancy coming on this podcast? I'll have a word with Fergus." So I said, nah. And anyway, next week he kept at me, and I said, "Yeah, all right then, go on in." And I spoke to Fergus briefly, and he sent me a link to do one. And well, I was about half hour late getting on, Dan, because I didn't even know how to use the link.
I've seen you still struggle with that now.
Yeah, exactly. I do. But once I got into it, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I laid down some. I laid down some rules about what I would and wouldn't do with Fergus, respectfully, because I'm not a ranter and a rager, and I'll never ever. I will call a player, but I won't ever wish harm or hurt on them or go over the top on them, So, I went on Fergus, and I've never looked back, mate. I love doing it. I love it. I love. Me and Fergus were at each other all the time, like an old married couple, but we're the best of mates. I think the world of him. And here I am. I don't do many others now. I'm just happy with what I do. And much like Fergus, I'm not looking for fame or fortune. I just like talking about the Arsenal. And if you talk to me about our football club, you have to say the Arsenal with a capital T on the the. Because if you just say Arsenal, I won't respond, because we are the Arsenal. And Dan, I've just seen Shane's question pop up there, mate. Yeah, it was me at the start of the Liverpool away game. Yeah, I didn't have a clue, and my phone went mental in my pocket in the ground. And I thought, what's going on here? And it was everyone telling me I'd been on the telly. So, yeah, it was me, mate, at the start of the game. I don't miss many. So, yeah, it was me on the telly.
He claims he didn't know the camera was there, but he was standing there preening and pouting. Yeah, and flicking his hair, Tart.
I didn't have a clue I was on the telly, Daddy. Don't listen to him, son. Don't listen to him.
That's what podcasting is all about.
How much, Trev, how much did Sky pay you for that? Because I know they pay people product placement and stuff like that. You must have got a couple of £100 for that at least.
Yeah, well, my bank account's all right. Yeah. I'm not gonna, for the benefit of the tax man, I'm not going to divulge any more information on this show yet.
It's probably best because I know they're watching. Fergus, what was the ups and downs of podcasting? What bit drives you crazy? I mean, I'm constantly moaning about my lot. What bit drives you crazy, and do you think is the best thing about doing a podcast?
Let's look at the best. The best thing is exactly this. And Trev said, we're good mates. There's probably about 15, 20 of us that, including yourself, Danny, that come on and we chat and we have a good laugh. And I always try and stick to an hour. We never stick to it. We come to an hour and 15, an hour and 20 minutes. It's absolutely brilliant. Initially, it was really hard with the audio because I had to take all the WAV files and put them in to get the quality of the audio, because I'm a bit of a stickler that I like good quality picture, I like good quality audio. But the thing that's hard is, one, putting up with his yawning because he's old, but two is, you know, there's many a time you're sitting there, you're thinking, oh, Christ, I've got to do a podcast on Wednesday. I'm not in the mood. I'm really not in the mood. And I message Trev and go, I'm not in the mood, mate. And he goes, oh, we'll call it a day. He said, no, we've got to do it. We said we've got to do it. Let's do it. And I get on there and I go, welcome to Guns of Yellow Ribbons. Hey! And before you know it, it's an hour and a half gone, and I've loved it. Absolutely loved it. So the hardest thing sometimes is just getting yourself enthused. Trying to coordinate people to come on is just an absolute nightmare, because everyone's got other lives. They don't realise that it's effectively me and Trev. We're here 365, and everyone else just jumps in, jumps out when they want, and it's down to us. And thinking of subjects and topics and just trying to be a little bit different, because me and Trev have said it many a time, and Trev, you'll agree, when we look at these podcasts, it's the same 30 lads and girls that just go around the circuit. I'll jump on your one, I'll jump on Potsy's one, I'll jump on Lee's one, and we all just go around. Trev is exclusive to Guns and Yellow Ribbons. I've got him on a good retainer. But it does seem like it's just the same stuff churned out, and it's just what flavour of Arsenal podcast you want as to which one you choose. So I was just trying to do something a little bit different, and I think what we try and do as our USP is just be natural, and it's a chat down the pub, having a beer, you know, and just chatting.
Yeah, I agree with that. Often I find the time I think, like today, I set my alarm for 4 p.m. and I thought,
lying.
I don't know if I can be able to get out of bed, because I have an annoying habit. I go to sleep, then I wake up, then I can't get back to sleep, then I finally get back to sleep, and I'm nice and warm, and then I think, I've got to get out. I can't be bothered. But then as soon as you start talking, you think, 3 or 4 hours go past, you just do the same thing over and over. And I think that transferring that to a medium like YouTube and audio for Spotify and iTunes and all that lot, and then other people like it, and you think, well, maybe we should carry on. And then for me, it's going to be a decade doing this in December this year. Trev, have you got any highs and lows about podcasting, stuff that drives you nuts, or stuff that you love?
Yeah, well, Fergus drives me nuts, mate. That's that simple as that. I won't watch or listen to podcasts that go in too heavy, because I think they're really, really going heavy, and it embarrasses me to listen to them because I think they're not fans of the Arsenal. But for me, I'm a bit selfish, Dan, because I love doing it. I love doing Guns and Yellow Ribbons, but Fergus does all the work. I just have a few ideas and chip in. So I am a bit selfish, but I have got an excuse in that my IT skills are just above zero, like 0.5.
I hadn't noticed.
Haven't you?
No.
But just talking about our team. You see, we talked about it the other night. In the old days, when I was a kid, or not so long ago, you go to a game and you shoot in the pub after the game, talk about the game for an hour or two, have a few beers, then you'd go home, and you wouldn't really talk about the Arsenal until the following weekend when you met in the pub before the game. Whereas now you can talk about it all week, and I'll talk all bloody day about my great club, I will, and so that's it for me. It's just the talk about the Arsenal. And the only thing that, as I say, that does me head in is when these podcasts go in a bit, in my opinion, Danny, a bit too heavy. Everyone's entitled to say what they want, but everyone's entitled not to agree with what people say, So, yeah, that's what
you know what it is, Trev. It's. And I'm not criticising anything. It's the style that myself and yourself like to do. But some places, and it not just Arsenal podcasts, but just TV in general, it has to shock. Be it, just think of a programme that's on Channel 4, because it's bound to shock you, Naked Attractions or something like that. It's gone from being a reasonable programme to everything has to use swear words, and it has to use stuff that you just go, really, is that necessary? Danny, ask Trev Colonel Ward's question, because that's a really good one, because I don't really do anything but Arsenal, but Trev is a football aficionado.
Trev, Colonel Ward says,
Yeah.
So what non-league teams do you guys follow? Why Arsenal? When Arsenal are not playing?
I love non-league football, right? I love visiting grounds. I've got that app where you record all the grounds you go to. I live in Lincolnshire, so I'm quite a long way away from a lot of grounds. But I've got 3 local teams that I've got Skegness Town, Boston Town, and Boston United are the 3 teams that I tend to go and watch if the Arsenal aren't playing. And I love going to all 3 of them. Yesterday I went to Skegness Town. It was £6 to get in. I had a couple of pints with a few really good mates that I never knew were there. You know, them impromptu meetups. So, yeah, I go to Skegness Town, Boston Town, and Boston United. But I love non-league football. And if you go, you realise the standard really is quite high. You know, level 5, level 6, they still play good football worth watching, you know. So, yeah, whenever the Arsenal ain't playing, I'm at a non-league game. Absolutely, I am.
You don't have any then, Fergus?
No, Orient is probably, Waltham Abbey, where Lee Judges plays as one of the vets, is probably the closest one to me. And then Leighton Orient, because I'm in Loughton in Essex. So, but no, to be honest, I just go to the Arsenal, and that's it. I've even checked out of an awful lot of the international football. One, I don't rate England highly, as much as England rates themselves. And 2, Ireland are absolutely atrocious. So, you know, why do I bother?
They were back in the Jack Charlton days. They were quite the team.
Under pressure.
It's always good. Yes,
Danny, don't mention the hand of Henri, son. Don't mention the hand of Henri.
The hand of Frog.
Here we go. He's off. Don't mention.
I'm not an Henri fan at the best of times. Scumbag. Once he left Arsenal, dead to me. I think it's important to have a non-league team so you can get some kind of balance between thinking, oh my God, look all that stuff Arsenal won. Oh, we haven't won anything for a couple of years. Oh, it's the end of the world. You want to support a team like my boys, Barnet. I support Barnet as my little team, and my local team's Peterborough United. Barnet are on the verge of getting relegated to the 6th tier of English football. If it wasn't for the fact that the Dover Athletic are going to go down there, there's only going to be 2 more teams. But Barnet are having an absolute dreadful time. My Scottish team are no longer in the Scottish League. Berwick Rangers, it's a nightmare. Go on.
My old boss owns Barnet. Tony Clanthus does he still own?
I think he does.
Barnet? Yeah, I used to work for him many years ago, and then I worked for him and Theo Paphitis.
Oh, I love Theo. What a wonderful! Don't tell me he's not a wonderful man. He was my favourite dragon. I just love everything about it. I think it's who he reminds.
He's a good dragon, and I remember being in a manager's sales meeting, and it's the one and only time I had a real interaction with him. We had a bad month. The glasses came off. He went like that, and then the rest was unpleasant.
There's another nice Arsenal podcast there with Richard over and over and over again. If you're interested in ladies football as well as other stuff, he does some really good stuff on his channel. I've been on it. Simmy Simpson said I used to play for Tooting and Mitcham. That's where my mum's sister and all of her family lived, down in Tooting and Mitcham. The Mahidis. Oh no, not talking about that. Cambridge United and 4-5 Athletic for me, says Loki. Been at Cambridge United once, didn't like it. Although I do prefer Cambridge to Peterborough, the city. Right, the next thing I'm going to talk about is my favourite series that you have done. Everybody should go to YouTube and find Guns and Yellow Ribbons and go and listen to the History podcast. They did 7 episodes, each one around about an hour, maybe a little bit more, with Mark Andrews and Andy Kelly. They are... I could just listen to. I'd like to be on a fly in the wall while those two are having a chit chat about all kind of stuff. I've got all the books that they've done. There you go, magnificent. I've got that. And it is. So how did you? Because we had them on ABW, maybe 2013, and then again in 14, just talking about their books and what new stuff they discovered. Everybody should go and follow them both on Twitter. Because they're always digging up new stuff and doing history of old players, and I love all of that lot. So, Fergus, how did you get them to come on the pod, and how did you convince someone to do best part of 8 hours of podcasts? Because that is epic.
To be honest, this was probably Trev deserves most of the credit. First of all, with the idea, and then because Trev's more old school and knows more the old stuff, and he was so enthusiastic about listening to Mark and Andy. Me, I was gormless most of the time. The amount of times I was made to look stupid, which is not unusual.
It's part of the charm, though. They don't want someone on there who's a know-it-all, though. They were genuinely interested when you go, "Is this right?" And they go, "No, that's not right." And then you go, "Go on, tell me then."
It was brilliant. So Trev came along and he said, "Have you been on Twitter?" Because Trev is a Twitter fiend, like fanatic sort of thing, not fiend. That's a completely different phrase. But he's a fanatic on Twitter, and he follows all the Arsenal bits and pieces, and he's got George Armstrong's daughter that puts up stuff, and he talks to her, and he's talking to Mark, and he's talking to Andy, and he came along and said, "Ferg, what do you reckon? Should we get these on?" It was the closed season, there was lockdown, there was call to do, and I said, "Yeah, go on then, Trev." And Trev was come along. I said, "Well, why don't you message them and see what they say, since you have a line, some sort of a line of communication?" And then they did. And there is 7 episodes, but there's also one standalone, which is almost just the one that was meant to be just the show. And it was like just an overall encompassing sort of podcast about Arsenal history. And we finished it and we carried on chatting. And because the way me and Trev chat, and we're quite relaxed, and Mark is so bloody dry, he ruins me absolutely every time, and Andy is so good with his stats and stuff, and they bounced off each other really well. We bounced off each other well, and then it was just like crossover the way we chatted, and we said, really enjoyed that. Do you fancy chopping it up and going in different eras? And they went, "Yeah, we could do this." So they started giving us ideas as we gave them ideas, and they loved it. And Marcus since has been back on again. Andy was hoping to get on Wednesday, but he's got commitments on Wednesday, so he's not available this Wednesday. But they'll be back on. We'll do more stuff. And I was on another podcast the other day with Danny, the guy who wrote the book. I can't remember his surname. He wrote the book Over Land and Sea and Lockdown. And he's also written with Mark and Andy before. So I'm going to try and do something maybe with a couple of them and Danny and bring him on as our Darren.
Is that Darren Berry?
Darren Berry, sorry, Darren. Yeah. So, but it was good. And Trev deserves 99% of the kudos of that one.
What have you got to say for that, Trev? He's been nice to you. Should we just end the show there?
I'm like speechless. I'm just letting him carry on while he's being nice. But what Fergus says, he's right.
It's the Italian beer, that's what it is.
I spoke to Andy and Mark a bit, and we'd all had no football, had we? We'd been in complete lockdown. No football was taking place. So I suggested to Fergus. Fergus, right, we're just going to do one show, and talk about the Arsenal. And then Fergus said, let's break it down. Let's do periods. And, credit to Andy and Mark. They're so good because we didn't do a lot of planning, All we said was, right, we'll do the Chapman era. And we went with that. And it just flowed, They're so knowledgeable. I thought I knew quite a bit about the Arsenal, but I'm not in the same league as them boys. And it's a great series. It's a shame that it's not more well known because I watch it back, I do. I watch it back for 2 reasons. I watch it because I still learn stuff from watching it. And I watch it secondly because Fergus gets ripped in it. He says something and they say, "Oh, no, Fergus. No. That's wrong. You're wrong." And it's funny. It makes me laugh as well. Yeah. So, it was.
Sorry, just to correct Trevor there. There is preparation done. You don't do any of it. I do. I lined up a few questions to direct it, but in credit, the boys do take over and go down the road. My favorite episode is the one, the war years, and I was managed to get unearthed a clip of the North Bank after it had been bombed by incendiary devices. And the lads knew everything about that as well, because the stand remained intact, but it buckled, the roof had buckled. And they said, the reason for that was there was a load of wooden stretchers inside. And they'd all caught fire. and the heat was so intense it buckled the roof of the North Bank. And they went into so many other stuff about like the underground station, about where first aiders are, where people slept in the stadium. It was a barrage, but there was just loads, and I love that episode. Partly because my father-in-law always talked. He was about 8 and lived in Burdett Road down Mile End, and he talked about Dougal bombs coming down Burdett Road, and he's running alongside them. So I just had fond memories of him talking about the war, and they brought me into that. How can you fond memories about the war? But you understand what I mean. But it was just really interesting, and the Chapman years were good as well. Learning about Norris, I didn't know half the stuff about Norris, that we nearly became Fulham FC. That we nearly even played football in Haringey. There's so much stuff in there. Honestly, not because it's Guns and Yellow Ribbons, but if you like Arsenal, check out Guns and Yellow Ribbons on YouTube. Go to the playlist. It's in history, and just follow them down. It really, as Trevor says, I do listen back. I'm more an audio than video, but it is really, really interesting.
They are. I've listened to some of them. I started to make notes on them, but for some reason, there's only a certain amount of information that I can keep in. And I know I've heard things before, and I still hear it and go, "Wow, I didn't know that. Oh, yes, I did know that. I've just forgotten." So some of them I've listened to at least twice, and it's just everything they do with that. And I'd like them to do audio versions of their books, because maybe them talking, or somebody else would have to do it. But it'd just be really interesting to all the stuff they do, and they're constantly working on new stuff as well. Going to the library, going through old newspapers and magazines and things like that, and digging stuff up and correcting the club, because many times they've corrected the club on stuff that the club have got wrong. And there's other historians and things. It's like that. I think one of the recent ones was. I think they were the ones who found out that we didn't play in that blackcurrant. That was just a miscoloration of a black and white photo. And another one, we didn't get our kit off of Nottingham Forest. They said, why would Nottingham Forest come to Arsenal? I'm sure that was it. Was that one of them? Or have I misremembered that?
They did talk about that, and they said that we played in all red at that point, and Nottingham Forest, we didn't get the white sleeves and red from Forest. And to be honest, I'm going to have to listen back to that one now, aren't I? But it was brilliant. Trevor will remember as well how many times we're sitting there and we're going, and it would be mainly Trevor go, so what happened in this game on the 25th of February at 2:00 in the afternoon? And I think it was drizzling and raining. I was probably about 6, so it would have been 1933. And Andy would go, oh yeah, such a one lined up on the front. We played a WW and we won 4-0. And it was just wonderful.
Yeah.
You got anything to say to that, Trev?
No, just if anyone's got a bit of time to spare and you're interested in the history of our great club, go and listen to them. And also, Mark and Andy have a website called The Arsenal History, and
amazing.
That website is. I will give you. Here is a warning for anybody that thinks about looking at the Arsenal history.
You say this several times.
Don't look at it if you've only got 5 minutes to spare, because you'll be in it for hours. It's got thousands of programs downloaded in it, match facts, every player that's ever played for Arsenal, every player of every game for the Arsenal. An amazing website. Yeah, there it is. That's the website there. You've just stuck it up. Fantastic. And Mark and Andy, I have the utmost respect for them boys and what they do. And I just wish that I had their commitment and their knowledge, let me tell you. Fantastic.
And sadly, they don't do it for the money, because you don't really make much money. And that was my automatic go-to is the list of every season with every lineup. This is the actual main part of their website, and it's got all. If you sign up, then you can go and they've copied, photocopied all the football yearbooks, and there's only one that they haven't done because they didn't make a. There's 1 year, I think 1983 or 82, they didn't do a football yearbook, and so I think they're in the process of making their own one, and they've got a list of all the captains and the years they did it, and just I'm not going to ruin it for you. Yeah, if you've got 5 or 6 hours spare, go there and have a deep dive. Right, we've got 10 minutes left to go. deep breath. Let's talk about this season and how you think we've got on so far, Fergus. And Fergus is coming on tomorrow. ABW are doing an 8-hour continuous podcast every half hour, 2 different guests, hopefully, if they turn up. And I'll be doing the entire 8 hours without a break. So, Fergus, you're one of the people coming on. And we're going to talk about the transfers tomorrow on there as well. But your thoughts on this season and where it's going to go, because I think that's what everybody really wants to talk about all of the time.
Sorry, is this where I'm meant to get all my pots and pans and chuck them out and lose my head, is it?
Yeah. Or go get in the car.
Yeah.
Do it from the car.
Honestly, it's not as bad as people are talking about.
True.
We are still in contention for top 4. Top 4 was our ultimate goal, but as long as we're in Europe and not the conference, as long as we're 6th and above, I think we'll have achieved what we want to do. Is better than 8th, 2 years running. I think also what's happening structurally behind the scenes within the club is really, really important. With the exception of Maitland-Niles, who I would have held back later into January, maybe this weekend, every one of those players that we've let go, Chambers was a shock, but not really a worry. But every one of those players that went, we all wanted to go anyway. They were deadwood. Aubameyang looks like he's off to Barcelona now, but they're just toying about wages and stuff. They're all the players we wanted to go. There's a cultural change within the club. The club's about, yes, we are saving a lot of money on wages, but why not? You know, I'd rather save the money on. I'd rather pay players that want to play for the Arsenal. I'd rather pay money to agents and clubs that want, like Vlahovic. He never wanted to play for Arsenal. People on some of the WhatsApp groups were losing their absolute heads over it. It was unreal. We can still get top 4, beat Spurs, which is a huge game, and Wolves. And then we're 4 points clear in top 4. We have got Chelsea away and Liverpool at home as well, which are games in hand because of the cup competitions. But I don't know, you know. Fergus, do you think, Fergus, do you think not a chop?
Do you want me to read it to you?
Yeah, please. Not slightly harder with only 4 players. Yeah, it will be. In fairness, Mark, the squad is quite thin. Myself and Trev have talked about this a couple of times, and we think, and we said, maybe the club they don't need 25 players, really. They could be just going with 17, 18 players to get through. We've got one competition. We're in the league. Personally, I'd like 2 or 3 players in each position for suspensions, for options to change off the bench. We saw against Burnley, we had 5 academy players on the bench. The only option was to put Eddie Nketiah on. You could have changed around a few other things, but in reality, that was the only thing you could do. So I'd like a little bit more depth to the squad, Mark. Yes, totally.
How about you, Trev? How are you feeling on this? Much along the same lines as Fergus, I'd imagine.
Well, Fergus used the word "we" there about 15 times, and I didn't necessarily agree with everything he said. But
you never do.
it's what it is. It's an up and down season. What infuriates me is I've seen us play football this year. It's probably the best football we've played in 10 years. You know, there's been a few games where we've been outstanding, and then you go to watch the next game full of hope, thinking we're on the upward trend, and then we play awful. You know. Prime example is we lose 2-1 to Manchester City when we should never have lost. We're the better side on the field, and then next time we play, we go to Man United, we go to Everton, and we go to Nottingham Forest, and we're awful, losing against teams that we should never lose to, that we're capable of beating. So it's the consistency that's annoyed me this season. It really is. We've got some cracking young players. And much like Fergus, we've only got one competition to fill the season out with. So I'd love to have seen us bring in a midfielder and bring in a striker. But if we don't bring in a striker, then my view is we play the kids, because they're not going to be any worse, are they? Because our strikers ain't scoring goals. So how can they be worse? You know? Eddie, I feel so sorry for Eddie, but I've lost faith in him now. I don't think he's going to be good enough. And Lacazette, I love Lacazette. I love watching Lacazette play football on the field. His energy, his passion, his go-to. You know, see, he's done it again, Dan. You see that? He's done it again. See, he's done it again. But he is a striker by name, but it's only by name because he doesn't score goals, that man Lacazette. So we badly need a striker. Badly. Even if it's something, a couple of seasons ago, Man United needed a striker badly. What did they do? They couldn't get anyone young or banging them in, so they went and got Cavani, who's a bit of an older hand, right? But look, how has he bailed them out? He scored some really important goals for him, and he's led the line, So we need a striker. But as I say, it's an up and down. It's a frustrating season only because you watch them play games and they're capable of so much better, and you can't work out why they're not playing.
Trev, the we was the Arsenal fan base, nothing to do with you.
All right then, mate.
Good. Yes, I think that's how most sane people think about the Arsenal, especially your point about shouting and screaming. It's just like everything in life. No one's going to watch EastEnders if they just go about their daily business. How are you? Oh, I'm fine. Anything happened? No, not really. If Arsenal podcasts, they're all like that, then most of these other people don't have personalities. No one would listen.
What a huge shock in EastEnders would be if they were down the market. I haven't watched it in 20 odd years and go, how are you, Danny? Oh, I'm fine. Up to anything, getting a wash machine, this one. God, you could have a wash machine in your house. What's going to happen with the laundrette?
I had a dream last night that I went to my mate's kebab house and he had a washing machine for sale. There you go, because I do need one, a new washer dryer. Because my one no longer dries. So it's technically just a washer. I know, it's wonderful. Right.
I'm just scrolling here, Dan, because someone put something that made me giggle up just now. He put up, have you got 5 minutes to watch the Tottenham Hotspur history podcast? Well, look, I have got 5 minutes, but I'm not watching their history podcast twice, mate. Come on. 5 minutes, you could probably watch it 3 times. I'm not doing that. I wouldn't watch it once, let alone 3 times. Sorry, Dan, I'll cut you off there, son.
That's all right. No, this show's about you two, not about me. Right, we've got a couple of minutes left to go. What's your plans for the rest of the season, Fergus? What wonderful things have you got coming up on the podcast?
We have an opportunity, which we're still toying with, of doing a live podcast somewhere close to Highbury. We've been approached by a venue. And as much as when myself and Trev talked about it, our sphincters twitched majorly at the thought of sitting in front of 200 or 300 people with a load of beer in them in a pub, but it's something that we're going to look and explore. So that's the plan initially to look at. Some of the other things we'd like to do is more like the history sort of things and that sort of. Trev, ideas? What do you think? Because Trev's my ideas man.
Well, we're going to have Andy and Mark on a little bit more regularly, hopefully. We've had Mark on again. We haven't had Andy yet. I love listening to them boys talk, and there's lots we can talk about, especially now we've only got the league to talk about, no cup and nothing else to look forward to. So I'd like to do that. Much like Fergus doing a live show from a venue with people in. I have to get my missus to fire my computer up. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how we'll get through that, but we'll have a chat about it and we'll do it. We're a small podcast, Danny, right?
Just get a big tenor man.
We're a small podcast. We get some viewers, but we do it, right? Because we love talking about our club. I've said it 3 or 4 times already, but I make no apology for that. I love it when you come on our podcast, Danny, and we talk about the Arsenal, What I don't like it when we start drifting off into, well, we don't do it. We don't let it happen. No politics, you know what I mean? Nothing that's going to get us in trouble. We know what's happened, but we're not going to talk about that this weekend, because it's pointless talking about that. We're here to talk about the Arsenal, and there's plenty to talk about, So, I just want to see us. I wouldn't mind us growing a little bit, get expanding our guest base a bit, as we've done with you, Dan, you've done a couple now, expanding our guest base and just talking about our club.
I think what you said there is perfect, Trev, in the sense that we'd like to grow a bit, but we're not about like. I don't want to be walking down the Arsenal and go, oh, that's you. You're that idiot from Guns and Yellow Ribbons. And you see what some of the guys get from like AFTV being probably the biggest podcast out there and channel out there. Robbie gets pelters, whether you agree or disagree with what he does, but nobody deserves to be called, a sex offender and stuff like that at games. No, he's doing what he's doing. Just if you don't like it, don't tune in. And I don't want it to be a situation. I don't mind if somebody goes, I like what you do, thanks very much, and move on. But you don't want to get abuse anywhere. Thanks for sharing that. That's the link on YouTube to the history playlist. So if anybody wants to watch the playlist, go onto that link and you'll see it all.
Yeah, this will be up on YouTube, it'll be on iTunes, it'll be on Twitter and Facebook and all those other places. I'll have a link to the YouTube channel, and you just put into your podcast app of choice. Personally, I prefer Spotify and Acast. Just go in there, type in Guns and Yellow Ribbons, and then click subscribe, and then go and listen to their shows. So, any other stuff you want to get mentioned before we go, Fergus or Trev?
Go on, Fergus.
No, I'm good. I just thank you for giving us the opportunity to come on. I like what you do. I like you as a fellow as well, and we get on well. But I like what we do, and I like what you do. And yeah, thank you for sharing the love.
Yeah, that's it. That's what we like to do. Always like to. You're probably about the 8th or 9th one of these that we've done. We do huge ones like Same Old Arsenal and the Highbury squad. And then we do little ones that people may not have heard of. And then there's ones like you lot in the middle where I think quite a lot of people have heard from you and see you regularly at the games. And you're friends with some of the people from the Real Big Podcast, like you're good mates with Dan Potts and a few others. And you had you had to put up with Mike from the Gooners Podcast terrorising you at games and filming you when you were getting sloshed. So that was probably good fun. Trevor, anything else you want to say before we go? Oh, go on, Fergus.
He was sloshed, we weren't. And Potsy, funnily enough, Potsy started on Guns and Yellow Ribbons. That's where he found his fame.
Oh, I hope you're getting an appearance fee for every time he's on AFTV and the Same Old Arsenal.
Forgot to sign the contract he did, didn't he?
Oh, no. Nightmare. Trev, anything you want to say before we go?
Yeah, look, it wouldn't be a podcast if I didn't get me 10 penny thing after Fergus finished, because it does his head in. I do it nearly every podcast. All I'll say is you come and have a look, and if you fancy, we often do this. We sometimes do these call-in ones, phone-in ones. So if anyone watching here fancies getting their ugly mug on our podcast and have got some things to say, keep an eye out, because we'll have you on. You can pop up for 5 or 10 minutes and have a chat, talk about the Arsenal and tell us what you think. And then, and you're very welcome. Just remember, though, we're just an Arsenal pod, just a few lads chatting about the Arsenal. That's all we are. I have no other goals. I just come and talk.
Wednesday night we're going to do. We were going to do something Monday night because, but with the transfer window ended and everything else, we just felt it was probably the wrong time. People are all going to be on Wednesday night. Myself and Trevor are going to do a podcast. We'll probably have somebody else on, but we will have the phone lines open, as they call it. So we'll put a link up, and you can, from our website, gunsandyellowribbons.com, you'll be able to join the show and phone in. Don't swear on it. We don't swear. We keep it polite. And just have your phone on landscape and plug your earphones in. And 10, 15 minutes, talk about what you want. Lead the show if you want. We'll go from there. So if you fancy it on Wednesday night, 7:30, isn't it, Trev?
Oh, you're the boss. Whatever you say, sir.
You know it.
Whatever you say.
Right. Before we go, for the people listening at home on the bus and in the bar, Fergus, tell people your Twitter name.
On Twitter, we're Guns and Ribbons, and on Instagram, Facebook, and everything else, we're at Guns and Yellow Ribbons. And we've got a website with a few blogs and bits and pieces, not loads just yet. But if anybody fancies blogging, contact us. It's gunsandyellowribbons.com.
And Trev, what's your Twitter?
Gooner Ilsey, at Gooner Ilsey. And I'm always on there talking rubbish, but don't. You might need to mute me when I'm drunk after Arsenal have lost because it's not pleasant. But I'm always on there. I prefer Twitter.
And make sure he turns his phone off when he's lost his room key. I'm in Cremares. The beer's €1 a bottle. I'm drunk, lads.
I was in a mess that night, but it ended up being good viewing. So I've been told. I haven't got the bottle to watch it back, but it ended up being good viewing. I travel all over Europe to watch the Arsenal. I love the European aways. I miss them badly, Dan. I miss them so badly, the European aways, and that's why for me, top 6 will do this year. Get me back in Europe, even if it's in that tin pot competition. I don't care. I just want to be traveling with my great club.
Trev, we're abroad in February, aren't we? February 10th, we're going abroad. We're going up north.
For me, do you know what, Fergus? For me, it's straight across from here, mate. I'm not going any further north than I am now.
So you're still abroad then, because you were in Greece. Now you're up north still, yeah?
Well, I missed that part of my life. There's nothing better than podcasting from Greece with my shorts and flip-flops on while these boys were...
And we were freezing our nuts off.
Lovely. Well, there you go, people. That's a little insight into the kind of magic that these two weave on their podcast. Guns and Yellow Ribbons on YouTube and most other places. And if you go to their website, then you'll be able to find all of that. Right, we're going to go. Thank you very much for watching. We'll be back 4 p.m. Is it 4 o'clock tomorrow? Oh, you know what? I can't even remember what time the first bloody show is at. The first one is going to be... It is 4 p.m. It's going to be me and Craig from Same Old Arsenal. Some of the faces that you may well recognise that are coming on. There's going to be Tom from the Gooner Talk TV, Jared and Dan Potts. There's Amanda, FK, Oh That Crab, Marky, Drago, I think is in the chat, Kevin Campbell, Liam Kennedy, LL Cool James, Andrew from Dial Square, Fergus is coming on with Stan the Man at 8 o'clock, and then there's Mike from the Gooners Pod and Rich who was in the chat from Over and Over Again. They're on at 8:30. Sophie is on at 9 o'clock. 9:30 is Ola and Lee Judges. 10 o'clock is Femi from my pod and Owen Young, and then at 10:30 Daniel Cowan and the Femster again. Then Mike Hertz is later
for Owen.
Can't say that, or you can. 11 o'clock is me and Mike Hertz, and the final one is Miami John now in Chicago, and Graham Brooks from the Same Old Arsenal and AFTV, all coming on, all having a chit chat. And there are some slots available. There's 5 slots available. I have got some people in mind for that, but if anybody drops out, you never know. We might actually ask some of the listeners to come on. So be there, 4 p.m. tomorrow. I am doing 8 hours continuously without a break, talking to 31 different guests, because Femi's on twice, and only one person from ABW is turning up. Scumbags, a lot of them. Right, thank you very much, and thank you very much to you, Trev, and you, Fergus. You two have been an absolute delight, and we will see you later. Thank you very much, and good night.
Up the Arsenal.